When did you enlist?
When did I what?
When did you enlist?
August of 42, let's see, no, August of 45, that's when I graduated. August of 25. 19, I'll take that long, it's 1945.
Where were you living at the time?
Where did what?
Where were you living at the time?
In Kansas. Worst state in the union. I'll tell anybody, don't go back to Kansas. Nothing but dust storms, crickets, grasshoppers, and a cricket will come and eat up your garden. The grasshoppers will, but a cricket comes and he'll eat an edge ball off of a tree. That's Kansas for you. And if you think you've seen a dust storm on the television, you should live in Kansas. And I'll bet you dust in my attic is 4 inches deep. That's a dust storm. And we were like you kids in school, and we were told, when you see them coming, you can't see the sky or nothing. They says, run home, dust storm's coming. You run home, your mother has a bathtub with water in it, because you can't even breathe that dust. You've got to put your head over there, a towel across your head, soaking wet, and you sit there until the dust leaves. That's a dust storm.
Let them ask the questions and we'll answer.
I just like to talk is all.
Why did you join?
And that was in August of, let's see if I graduated, 75 I think it was, is when I joined the Navy.
Why did you join?
Why did you join? That's the time when they're drafting. And my brother was going to be drafted, and I came home. I was working as a laborer at 20 cents an hour. A carpenter, he got more than that. He got 70 cents an hour. But I thought I was going to be rich because I was going to go work as a carpenter. My brother's sitting on the front porch, and I asked him, what are you doing there? Let's go join the Navy. 2 boys joined before the war, because there's nothing to do in Kansas. And they kept writing home, join the Navy, your 3 meals a day and a dry bed at night. And so, Sunday, I'm headed for Chicago, and that's when I joined the Navy.
Why did you pick the service branch you joined in?
Because 2 brothers joined before the war, and when they come on, they kept writing home, join the Navy, you get 3 meals a day, dry bed at night, and that's true. And that's the reason we joined.
So what do you recall from your first years in the service?
Well, I'll tell you something else. I recall when you asked me that, as I joined, and at home, we didn't live like you have stores where you buy stuff. We lived off of the animals in the ground. And when we got to shoot a gun, you're supposed to get a score of 25. You got a low house and a high house. And you say what you want to shoot. And that's teaching you how to use a gun. And you might be taught someday pretty soon. So that teaches you, when I say low house, they shoot it. I trade it with a shotgun, and you get 25, that's a slow score. But by my last one, I was in the low house, and you tell which one to find. I says low house, and they shot the high house. That's the only time I missed, because I didn't see that until I seen it, and I swung the gun around and get it. But that's where I turned into be an ordnanceman, because I made the highest score of any prize there.
What did it feel like when you joined?
What did you want?
What did it feel like?
When I joined?
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. I was supposed to get 6 weeks, but we needed men in those days. I only got 4 weeks of boot camp.
Why did you get only 4 weeks in boot camp?
Because they needed men in a hurry.
What was your boot camp like? The training?
Boot camp was short. We're supposed to be there 6 weeks. We're only there 3 weeks. And the boot camp was nice. I shouldn't tell you the stories too much about it. But my brother and I both joined the same. We slept in the bay, same. But so many kids were flipped out. You sleep in a hammock. You know what a hammock is? You sleep in that. Fellows are going around and flipping guys out at night just for the fun of it, I guess, and break their teeth and stuff out. And, no,
Yeah, don't get it.
I ended all of that, what I did. You go ahead and ask these guys that like, I can tell you too much and they'll shut up.
Why don't we go through the next two and ask the same stuff? Let's just do one. We'll ask one question, give all three a chance to answer once you get them.
You're right.
Okay, so Uncle Bill, when did you enlist?
In July of 43.
Where were you living at the time?
Pardon?
Where were you living at the time?
Right here in Portland. Or right in Portland.
Why did you join?
Because at that time, all my friends were, they all joined the Navy. I joined the Army.
Why did you pick the service branch that you picked?
Did you have a choice?
I tell you what, the choices wasn't, it was, my bunch were made up of 18-year-olds, and they sent them down to Presidio, Monterey, California. And you had two choices at that time, either the Air Corps or the Army. And since I enlisted, they said I would get to pick, and I had an idea that I'd like to be in mechanized, where maybe a tank or some damn thing. But when I got down there, they didn't ask me from then on, they just told me what to do. And I'm probably one of the few, but I went through an engineer camp. It was called Camp Abbott, and it was where Sun River, that was the training camp for a combat engineer outfit. And that's where I went. And as opposed to Tom getting 4 weeks, I got 17. And 2 of them was sleeping in the ground. I'll stop too.
Wait, I have a question actually. What's your name?
And right now, it's Bill Janelle.
Okay. How do you spell the
But
last
for
one?
9 years, it was DeCrubble.
How do you spell? Can you tell me how to spell both of those, please?
Pardon?
Could you tell me how to spell both of those, please?
Janelle is Junell.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
What do you recall from your first days in service?
To get used to using a name that I had never used. Believe me, you learn right off the bat. If they'll call something, you'll answer. Yo.
And your first days of the service, what did it feel like?
Well, that's a hard thing to say, because you're learning how to make a bed, how to use a uniform, how to do it. And basically, the first few weeks is learning that when somebody says something, you respond.
Tell me about your boot camp training experiences.
Well, as opposed to being mechanized, seems like you walked everywhere. And we built bridges and then the thing I remember mostly is you had a deal where you run obstacle course. And you went all out. And I don't know what an obstacle course is made up of a lot of things. I don't know, you probably know as much about them. They've probably seen some of them. you, and one of the things I remember most about it is, at Camp Abbott, when you run through that tunnel that you crawl through like this, it had ice on it, so to make it harder, they threw that gravel rock on the thing, so when you hit it, you had to work to go through instead of skidding through on your own. And then slinging ropes and climbing up, and then going over ditches, and at the end of the thing, they had a course where they had a machine gun run up, and you went under a double apron fence made of barbed wire, and you laid on your back and crawled through this thing. And you come up on the other side, once you got through, then you put a bayonet on a rifle, and they had a deal where you hit, and it hit back, and you were through, thank God.
Skip, what's your full name?
Bernard A. Miller, but they call me Skip.
When did you enlist in the war?
I think it was 1943. I went to school in Newport, Washington. That's where my father had a dairy. And my entire class, now this is a small high school, my entire class enlisted all at one time. We were all so upset when Japan had hit us. It was a different in those days. The other fellows in my class went into various different branches. Some went in the Army, some whatnot. I ended up enlisting in the United States Maritime Service. And I ended up being trained as, quote, an ordinary seaman. That's how to use a lifeboat and davits and everything else on board a ship. When I left boot camp, I came out as an acting able seaman. And when I got in sufficiency time to qualify, I made officer candidate school. And I became an officer, a third mate, an ensign. Spent most of my time in the Pacific Theater. One vessel I was on called the Belleville Lockwood, which was built at Swan Island in Portland, sailed completely around the world, and we ended up in Bayonne, New Jersey. It was a very, very long voyage. But at any rate, after each trip I would make, I would go home to Spokane, where my family was, for our liberty, then report to Seattle, and report again for an assignment to a vessel. Came out of it luckily, lost a lot of friends. The highest percentage of loss in all of the services, believe it or not, was in the Merchant Marine. Because the ships went down, their crews went with them. It was really sad. But keep in mind that Kaiser was building ships as fast as the Germans and the Japanese were sinking them. But the crews went with them, so they were constantly trying to train seamen, to handle the ships that were being built. That's pretty much it. Nothing unusual about it. I spent, as I say, most of the war in the South Pacific. Then as we began to go north to the Carolinas, the Marianas and whatnot, and finally, up to Japan, that was pretty much what it was.
Tell me about your boot camp experiences. I thought it was rather arduous. We had a very short time to train people, and the pressure was really that great to get you out, because they had ships waiting for crews, and they didn't lose any time training us. Right off the bat, we were working with lifeboats, which had to be launched, which had to be handled and everything, but
we had to learn all of the rules of, in the maritime industry. I would say that it was active, but not for a long period of time. Before I knew what was going on, I had been assigned to a vessel called the American Sailor. And that's where, when we came out of training, we spent a month on that vessel, learning everything about a ship, what has to be do, how you handle different cargoes and whatnot. And then, from then on, I got a license, and that was it. Originally went in the Coast Guard, to tell you the truth, and then they eased me into the maritime service.
Tom, where exactly did you go when you were at the war?
Where I went?
Yeah.
To Chicago for boot training.
And then after training, where?
Boot training, went to San Francisco. From San Francisco, I went to the island of Yamhill-Carlton. That's in the Hebrides. There's 3 islands. It's the smallest one. Reason we went there, the Japanese left. They didn't tear up their airport. They had their landing for the airplanes. Everything wasn't touched. The Japanese did us a nice favor, left it all intact. And that's where I spent 7 years, so many months on the island of Yamhill-Carlton.
Do you know how to spell that?
E-F-A-T-E. It's in the Hebrides, 3 islands in the Hebrides. Yamhill-Carlton is the smallest one. And the reason we went there, like I say, and if you ever have to join the Navy. 3 meals a day and a dry bed at night. Remember that. And you don't go marching at night either. You got training, but it's no marching like the Army and them do. So they would join the Navy, 3 meals a day and a dry bed at night.
Do you remember arriving at those islands? And what was it like?
Yes, I do. To go to that island the first time, now ordnancemen in boot camp, we had 80-some. Only 2 people didn't turn into ordnancemen. My brother, because he was a diesel man in life, and he was put on the minesweepers. That's what he was put on. And the other fellow, to pass the driving test, you got to dive in a pool 50 miles this way, or 50 feet this way. You don't touch the wall and turn and go 100 feet this way. Then you pass your swimming test. But being living in Kansas, I swim a lot in the river. And I did, and I didn't touch it and do the same thing. But the only 2 people they didn't take out of that and make ordnancemen was my brother, because he was a diesel man. They put him on minesweepers. And me, they put me in the Navy. And like I say, I wasn't long in any one place. I went through everything fast, and then to the island of Yamhill-Carlton.
What was your job or assignment? You were there?
I'm an aviation ordnanceman. I take care of the machine guns. And at that time, when they first started, their machine guns fired right out through the prop. You've got to set that prop so when it's going this way, that your bullets don't hit your prop and cut it off, because they had 250 calibers firing through that bullet. So I learned how to do that. I did that quite a bit all the time, setting that thing up. For the tail gunner, the same thing. He's got a 30 caliber he's firing with. When that comes around here, that gun can't fire, so that has to be set. I could do that. I couldn't do it today because I don't remember a thing about it. But like I say, if you got to go in, join the Navy.
So, did you ever see combat on those islands?
Yeah, you shouldn't ask me that, because I did at Guadalcanal. They put us on Guadalcanal, and I seen a lot of that. We had fighter strip going one, and where we slept and all was about 5 miles from fighter strip. Because Japanese were not going to bomb us, they want to knock out fighter strip. And I took care of airplanes. And the worst thing I seen is a kid was shot, and the turret gunner shot through the knees. Both legs are flopping. But you're taught in there right away how to tourniquet anything. And that's what he was done. But what he didn't do, and if you ever get to the Navy, wear that dog tag. He didn't. Most people have type O blood, and that's what they shot him with, but he died right there at the airplane. So like I say, still join the Navy, but if you'll get a dog tag, you wear that dog tag all the time.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
Really, what?
Casualties?
Yes, there was. I could tell you more stories on Guadalcanal that
Let's
happened,
don't get into it.
but he says don't get into it, because there's too much I've seen. I tell you what I did see, and my big thing on there, 3 American caterpillars are knocked out, they're sitting out in the field. Every one of those caterpillars has got a Japanese head stuck on the exhaust pipe. I'm going to tell you these stories because this is what you'll see.
No, good, Tom.
Let that go.
That's,
Well, they got to be in the service,
Let it
they'll
go.
know what they're going to run into.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
You know,
Did you sustain any injuries?
did I what?
Sustain any injuries?
Well, the only thing I got is I got the disease on Guadalcanal and almost died there, but, and you won't take my blood, they won't take it today because I still got orphan in my system.
So, Bill, where exactly did you go during the war?
First, I took my basic there at Camp Abbott, and then they shipped us over to New Guinea, and from there up to the Philippines. And I was 2 years over there. I had a wonderful time.
Do you remember what arriving at those places was like? What you felt?
Yeah, it was, in New Guinea, it was a jungle, and it was a very place, it looked like you didn't want to go. And they had us divided into odds and evens. And first they said that I wasn't gonna have to get off there, and I thought, Jesus, that's wonderful. But then they changed it, that's where I got off. Which was probably good, because it wasn't a bad spot, it was base A at that time. So it was,
What was your job or assignment?
when I was there, I was rigging for a crane that they had to move things. When I went to the Philippines, I was a labor foreman over Filipinos, which was a wonderful job.
Do you remember what year you went to New Guinea?
Pardon?
What year you went to New Guinea?
Yeah, it would be 44. And when we went overseas, I remember that they put a whole, maybe several thousand on the Republic, which was a troop transport that had belonged to the Germans during World War I. And they reconditioned it, so that when you went over and you got water once a day, and then there was having a sea battle out there, so it ended up, it took us 30 days from when we left till the time we got in New Guinea. And my first impression is when they fed me the cereal, and it had those little black things in it.
Did you ever see combat?
I wouldn't say I seen any. I seen a lot of dead bodies at this minute. And we were a boat battalion and ended up, what the main thing of the 411th was to keep the landing crafts going. And then they were damaged.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
Oh, I only know of 2 that I know of. They, one of them, the casualty was that when they made the way to put the landing craft down, he drowned.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
The company got a unit citation, that's the only thing that you could wear on your uniform. It was for the whole bunch of us.
Did you sustain any injuries?
Not a bit.
So, what were the circumstances in New Guinea at that time?
Well, that was as far as the Japanese got, was Millennium Bay. And the landing crafts were all up on the beaches of theirs, everything that was left. And when we got there, it was just basically to keep stuff moving. They, how did I put it? I'll stop too.
Alright.
The thing about when I went to the Philippines, you got off of the ship and there was rope ladders for over the thing. And you went down and got on the landing
It's a
craft.
troop ship, huh?
Yeah, and when I got in to shore, the fellow that was taking us in stopped the boat and he says, it was an LCM, get out. And I looked over and the water was clear, must have been 10 feet deep. And I told him, there's no way I'm getting out. And I was in the front line, there was 3 of us. So we talked him into going further again, and he should have went in till he could drop the end, and he dropped it down. And when I finally went in, well, I was waist deep, and then full fuel pack and everything, and I was wet all night long laying in, as opposed to having a place, warm bed to sleep in. Tom. Yeah, I slept laying on the ground.
What is one of your most memorable experiences?
I miss that, honey.
Okay. What is one of your most memorable experience?
Well, when I was in what? You don't really know which one to, I'll pick an easy one though. When I was in New Guinea, before they put me in the unit, they work you as casuals to unload the ships. And I took the mail in with a bunch of us, and they have a big rope deal full of mail, and they're gonna lift that up on the ship. And I got on the wrong side, so when they lifted the thing up and they moved it over, it was gonna knock me in the ocean. So I grabbed hold of the rope ladder that was taking the mail, and it took it up, and I was getting ready to drop it down into the hole. Nice ride. And they saw me, so they brought me back and put me down, and then the officer in charge proceeded to read me for doing, he thought I did this on purpose. And when he got through, I told him, I said, I could have either rode that rope ladder up, or I could have went swimming in the ocean. and I presume I'd rather go into the ship.
Skip, during the war, where exactly did you go?
I should clarify, I would say in the 5 years that I was in the maritime service, I sailed on 7 different ships. That's tankers, regular cargo ships, and everything we supplied for these fellows had to go in on merchant ships with merchant crews. So there were tankers for oil, and cargo for the ammunition and whatnot that they had, plus supplies. Not only that, but we would carry things like PT boats on the foredeck. I received campaign bars for the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Mediterranean. Those are the 3 areas I actively served in, dependent upon the particular ship I was assigned to at the time. As I mentioned earlier, when we would complete a trip, I would go home for a liberty and go back to Seattle and then be reassigned to another vessel. So I never knew what it was going to be until you got it. But I did serve in all 3 of them. And I would say the most, thing that I remember best is having a ship sunk from under me. You know, that's a different experience altogether. But after the war was over, I was going to sail on a second mate's license. And an uncle of mine who I stopped to visit on my way to Gwen says, hey, listen, you've been involved in a war, forget about it, get back to a normal civilian life. And that's when I became involved in the floor covering industry. But that's pretty much in a nutshell what it amounted to. But I had experience in all different types of vessels. Now, I did not serve on a military vessel, but I was involved in invasions, and I can remember in the Philippines when they were lobbying, in those days, we had battleships, and they were shooting over the top of us, and like Bill said, we had people going over cargo nets on the seaward side, getting into motor launches for the invasions. So I saw action there, but I never got shot, you know. Lucky.
So, where was one of the places that you went?
Every place. No, really. And that's one thing about a cargo vessel, merchant marine. They hit different ports with their, I've been to Sydney, Hobart, Tasmania, I've been to Cape Town, through the Mediterranean. We didn't sail in the Mediterranean itself because the Germans had it blocked. If you went beyond that, you're going to be sunk. But every port that we hit, there was a reason for going there, for delivering.
Was it pretty easy going on board the ships?
We had regular meals. You would serve 4 and off 8, 4 and off 8. So that was a 24-hour deal. The crew was always a skeleton crew. If somebody became ill, there wasn't anybody to take care of them other than first aid. The only time we had a lot of people on board of a ship would be if I was serving on a crew transport. Then we would have a lot of them.
Do you remember what it was like arriving at each place?
It was a new experience each case. We would get ashore, go on a liberty, try to stay out of trouble. I think Hobart, Tasmania was a great place because the British had an IXL jam plant there, and everybody over the age of 16 had been put away for a while, so it was all girls, so we had a nice liberty, and we had all kinds of American records, so we were popular. But
What was your job or assignment?
I was, yes, let's put it this way, you had, when you were on watch for 4 hours, you were either, if you were a quartermaster, you were at the helm. If you were an officer, you were on watch. Now, on the 8 hours that you're not on a watch, yes, you worked. There were a lot of things that gotta be done on a ship to keep it up. But it's manual labor, you know.
Were you?
I was a pretty good navigator, by the way. It was all spherical trig in those days. No, when I think about what you go to now off the satellites, my God. You know, but within, what, half a mile where you are all the time at sea. But when you're sailing on the ocean, it doesn't work that way. You take a sight in the morning, you get a bearing, you take another one at noon, depending upon the accuracy of your timepiece and where they cross. By the time you figure it out, that tells you where you had been 20 minutes earlier, and then you go dead reckoning from that point on. But that's the way it was, because we had no gyro compasses. The Navy had gyro compasses, but we had magnetic. Pretty primitive when you think about it.
Were there any casualties?
No, not in that respect. We've never had a crewman shot, if that's what you mean. But I was in action where we were shelled and everything else. Well, take it back. Yes, this was in Saipan. The Japanese sent in a couple of kamikazes, and there were 3 merchant ships at anchor. And the signalman that was on the flight deck with me, top deck, was a youngster from South Carolina who had just gotten a V-mail from his mother telling him that his girlfriend had twins. And he was up there with me. A piece of shrapnel hit this youngster in the helmet. And have you ever seen a chicken when you wring its neck? This is the way that poor young man was, you know, the same age I was, for Pete's sake. And he, of course, fell on the deck and kicked, and he was dead. That was my extent of actually physically seeing a casualty close to me. But these fellas saw a lot, I imagine.
What was your most memorable experience?
Ship going on. All of a sudden, you haven't got anything underneath you, you're trying to get to a lifeboat. And then you're looking for somebody to rescue you, you know. In this particular case, it was in a convoy, and it was a destroyer that picked us up. Lucky that didn't happen very often, you know. Usually you lost. Something that you probably don't realize, in supplying the Pacific theater, the vessels didn't sail in convoys early in the war. They sailed all alone, and no merchant ship was ever supposed to see another one. You had a 3-inch gun in the cannon in the bow. You had a 5-inch, that was an anti-aircraft gun, and a 5-inch cannon in the stern, and that, with a couple of 20 millimeters in each wing, was your sole protection. The big worry was submarines.
Were you awarded any medals?
I received 3 campaign bars for the theaters that I sailed in. I still have them. I did get an award when I graduated from officer candidate school. I was top man in my class in navigation. I was pretty, in those days, I was pretty good in math. But the washout was unbelievable in Officer Candidate School. They tried to train people real quickly to man these vessels. The washout was like 66%. They just didn't make it because you had 3 months to get this degree. If you didn't get it, you were out back.
Tom, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Just writing mostly, and
Email.
it's email, and they cut out half of your letter. You can't write anything in there where you're at. You can't mention any of that at all.
They were all censored, yes.
I want to tell you, I told my mother when I joined how to tell where I was at. I told her to take every paragraph of mine, take the last word in that paragraph and write it down. That's tell you where I'm at. She's old enough, she didn't pay attention to it. When I got home, I took the letter and showed her. If she'd have read that, she would have seen E-Fa-T on it. It took some time to figure out that last letter in every paragraph. That's the only way you can get stuff home in the mail. If you write anything where you're at, it's etched out. So,
Honolulu was iron.
you know, like I can say, I can tell you a lot of things. You probably wouldn't like to hear this. I bought a skull at Guadalcanal for only $5. He doesn't want me to tell about it. It's complete, cleaned up and everything. A man has, when I got there, there's bodies laying all over, American, Japanese, and whatnot. There's bodies and there's vehicles all over. You can take a vehicle you want, there's barrels of gas all over. You can take a barrel of gas and keep it. And that's what we did, because there was that many ordinances when we took a truck so we could drive around and see things. But that's what I was going to tell you, they shouldn't sell. I bought a skull for $5.
And you'd have been court-martialed in the army.
Maybe I would have. They don't do
They didn't do
nothing
that.
like that in the Navy time in
Didn't
that
allow
time.
any of that.
I bought that for $5 and I kept it, and on the way home in San Francisco, it said, if you have something in your sea bag you shouldn't have, you better throw it over or you won't get off the ship. That's why I throw my skull over. But our tent over, I shouldn't tell, he doesn't want me to tell you these stories, but this is something that you could see. Our tent has a skull on every,
Questions, Tom, we're not,
with what?
we're just answering questions.
Yes, okay, he doesn't want me to tell you. But our tent had a skull on every post on the four corners. And then we had a deal going this way out to the road. We had a skull in each one of those. It only cost you $5. I know you like to hear those stories, because that's something you see. In my theory
When
of
I-
the service, in the service, you're no longer a soldier or whatnot. Even you or the Japanese, you're animals fighting each other. That's what you are. Or you wouldn't do the things that a human being would do. I'm not kidding
All
you.
I know is when I was walking by, everything would stink so bad that I wouldn't, they'd blow up and blow. So I didn't want to have nothing to do with any of that.
I didn't want to ask for it, but I was shown this, and I think the good Lord showed me what could happen. They dug a trench that's about a depth of a truck. I've seen bodies of Japanese and Americans dumped in that trench and then covered up. And I wonder today if anybody has ever dug down that far and see all the skeletons in there. It's
The Germans
terrible.
did it.
Huh?
The Germans did it with a whole race.
Because those things I seen,
Let's just answer questions.
I'm talking.
What was the food like?
It was fair, yes. Once they got to cooking it, it was fair, but most stuff is frozen. And I got like a Thanksgiving turkey leg that's froze to the bone because they didn't have the heat and they didn't have the time to cook it like it should be. And I was happy that I got on Guadalcanal and seen what happened in a military zone. It's terrible. Bodies all over every place. Americans, Germans, or not Germans, but Japanese, and bodies laying all over on the ground. And that fellow cleaned skeletons in 5 barrels, cut heads off, put them in there, cooked them, and cleaned them. That's the things you never see,
Bill,
Bill.
all right, Tom, knock it off.
Well, I want these people to understand what could happen if they go into the service.
That's not typical, Tom.
Hey, I'm talking to you.
That's all right, Bill. That's my memories, and I want you to know the memories that I seen, and
We
things
heard
that
it
you will
before,
see.
Tom.
You're talking about food right now. Here's a guy that liked the food that they got over there. Dried food all the time.
That's right, we did.
And he gained
Much
big
dried
weight
food.
on it. I dwindled from a 200-pound man down to 150, eating dried food that didn't agree with me. So there's a difference between one person getting the food and it doing fine with it. You did fine, didn't you?
I did over there in the dried food, but when I come home, and I had to go to the doctor, I got down to 125 pounds. And he said, it's the food, you're eating different. Over there, I eat all dried food. Over here, you're eating this food, and my stomach wouldn't hold it.
Well, tell him how much you weighed when you were over there.
Well, 180 pounds.
Okay.
I fight 160
And-
here.
And I was only 18 years old, and I weighed 200 pounds, and I was 6 foot tall. And at one time, I went down to 144 pounds. It's when they put me on the ship coming home, the food started to change. I got 6 pounds just coming home.
No, I just wanted to tell you what you could happen if you're in
Your
the
food
service.
was what, but I used to go down and
And
beg
for Christ's sake, join the
the
Navy.
merchant marine people for a potato, for Christ's sake.
Tom, did you feel any pressure or stress?
Did I want?
Feel any pressure or stress?
No, I did get the orphan in the Guadalcanal, and I put a temperature clear to the top like this. When they took me in and laid me in bed and put that thing in my mouth, he turned to walk down to the bottom, and I says, come and get this, because that went clear to the top. And he stuck it down, I didn't shake it good, he put it in my mouth. When he put it in my mouth, I seen it again, halfway up, he grabbed it and ran, and that's when I passed out. But I came back, and when I woke up, I'm covered with ice from head to foot. Only thing out is my nose and my mouth. That's all that saved me. If they hadn't put ice in the commissary the day before I checked in, I would be dead today. Because I put that thermometer clear to the top.
I got malaria in the Hebrides from mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's where I got it in the, mosquitoes, I got those in Guadalcanal. You take a pill for it. but-
Atterbury.
Yeah, you take Atirin and take, well, I had 2 pills I had to take, but I still got the disease, and it damn near killed me. Hadn't been for that ice, I'd be dead today. Yeah.
Did you do anything special for good luck every single day?
Did I what?
Do anything special for good luck?
Well, exercise mostly, and that's what I gotta do today. I'm short on red blood right now, but the doctor told me all I gotta do is eat red meat and exercise. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, because I don't have, my red blood is short. Why, I don't know. I just want you fellas to hear something like this, because that could happen in your life. But I hope we don't have any more wars. Tell you the truth.
So what did you think of the officers and the other soldiers in your unit?
Well, you have a rating, and all you have to do, I didn't have any bad ones at all. The only time that I had any problem is I went in Guadalcanal. The United States has, Navy has nothing on the ground, and I served on the ground almost life in the Navy. But when I checked in there that time, that fellow on the Army told me, he says, we can't take you, we're having an inspection today, you go back to your tent. I was very lucky the officer of the day came through that tent, and he whacked me across the bottom of my feet with his nightstick. And he didn't have to do that to wake me up. And I had him by the end of the throat and I was ready to deck him. When he kept hollering, officer of the day, and officer, that told me. But I was very happy he went to there, or I'd have died right there in bed with fever. I just tell you these, he doesn't want me to tell you, but these are things that if we have a war and you're in there, you become an animal, you're no longer a human being. That's my thoughts of people in the service too. We had 8 Japanese people cleaned up and all in a bed, and some Australians come in and shot off 8 of them. I'm just telling you stories that I've seen, and if you wanted stories, I had them.
How did you entertain yourselves?
I don't know, I read mostly. I had books that I take with me, and I read most of the time. That's the way I did it, yeah. But you don't have much to do. Well, that's about all you gotta do, is read. Although we got to take care of 4 cannons that shot airplanes at night, that's when we shot one down. The next day we went to find it, but that's when I went back because I was out in the woods. And also, you're not supposed to go outside in Guadalcanal unless you're 5 men and every man's iron or armed. And I didn't go out. And what saved them as a Marine, and I won't tell you that, but that Marine come back and he wouldn't even stop and have a cup of coffee. All he does is stay in a tree and he watches for Japanese and shoots them. I couldn't do that. I'm just telling these stories because I don't think anybody will ever hear that. And nobody will ever think that you could own a skull for $5 cleaned up. And I threw that in, when I got into the States, I threw it away. And my wife told me, she says, "You glad you threw it away, I'd never married you."
Bill, how did you stay in touch with your family?
You mail a letter, that's all.
That's all, yeah.
It was tissue paper, remember? The email?
There were bills, and then it was always blanked out, everything.
Since after you wrote it.
So what was the food like?
Well,
Shouldn't
Yeah,
ask
we
that,
have
should
to
we?
answer that.
I just told you that it wasn't worth a darn. It was always dehydrated. Beef and gravy, and powdered eggs, powdered, everything was dry that I got. I never got anything that wasn't.
So did you guys have plenty of supplies in New Guinea?
Have what?
You guys have plenty of supplies?
Well, yeah, there was no problem, and I did get one thing good. They had a baker, and the baker would make rolls and stuff once in a while. Now, that was good. But I was in 30-some months, and two years of it was overseas, and I got 2 good meals.
That's right, Jim.
Did you feel any pressure or stress?
When you're a real young person, things don't bother you. I didn't think that anything would happen to me. See, I was 18 and 19, got out when I was 20.
Did you do anything for good luck before you started the day?
No. Why would I need anything? Nothing was ever gonna bother me.
How did you guys entertain yourselves?
Played cards. Actually, you see, when I was in New Guinea, it belonged to the Australians and the British, and we got paid in pounds. So when you played cards, you were using, that's what we got paid. And a pound at that time was $3.20. But when you're playing cards with somebody else's money and there's no place to spend it, it doesn't mean as much as when all of a sudden they changed and started paying in our money. Then we were more careful. And the Philippines was our money. Well, I take that back, it was pesos for a while.
What did you do when you were on leave?
On leave?
Yeah.
Who got leave?
Not in the beginning. there
Oh,
was
no,
no
wait a
leave.
minute, no leave at all in the
And
beginning.
it, no, you didn't.
You know, you were just there for the year. And then when we went up to the Philippines, until things had quieted down, then I got to go to Manila, because I was on Luzon. But where we come in and got settled is a place called Batangas Bay. So, yeah. And then we did get, this year to go to, so I got to go to Luzon and see Corregidor and all that bit. But, and when you were, the real leave was the people who got to go to Australia. They go to Cairns and the problem then is they let so many of them go until they could catch them. Then the next batch got to go. So sometimes it took them a while to catch the fellows that were making their leave longer than others.
What did you do,
You shouldn't ask me the stories that probably I shouldn't tell you. The things I've seen is terrible to me.
well, after your service? Did you go into a career or anything after your service?
No, after my service, I came to Portland, Oregon. From the kid I was with overseas, was born and raised here in Portland. And he's the one that taught me not to go into Kansas, come to Oregon, which I'm glad I did. I never seen a green tree like you got here in Kansas, and you won't find it in Kansas either. So I've been here ever since then.
Bill, what did you do after the service?
Beg pardon?
What did you do after the service?
Getting a little bit further, my high school class, a lot of people didn't graduate. What they did is they knocked off and went to work, because anybody could work. And I started out to work at sheet metal. So when I got back out, I went to work as a sheet metal worker, which I did for 42 years.
And he was good at it. Very good at it.
Skip, what did you do after the war?
I thought I was going to be an attorney. And I went to law school, night school. And I had married incidentally, and I had a day job in a flooring industry. And I guess after about 7 months of studying every night and 2 of the nights going to law school, my wife wanted to go to a movie. And I said, I can't, Rose, I've got to brief these cases. And I had 2 classmates, and we had decided we would, when we would brief cases, we would do them in triplicate. If it was domestic relations, you did 3 of them, and then you gave 2 of them to your buddies. And if they were doing something else, civic law, they would do the same thing. So you had your hands full, doing that. And I told her, I said, Rose, I can't. If I miss the class, that's it. She says, I don't care if you miss the class. So I skipped the class, never went back. Probably made her a lousy attorney, who knows? But I was successful in the industry in which I was. I ended up being a vice president in 2 of the corporations. I have a lot to be thankful for.
So, Skip, with life during your war, was there any particular humorous events that happened?
Well, no, we were just so busy all the time. As Bill says, we were young. We were kept busy all of the time. I don't recall that I did a heck of a lot of reading because I always had work to do when I was off watch. So the days were full. One of the things I think that was a little uncomfortable sometimes, every merchant vessel had what was called a crow's nest on the mainmast. And you went up a ladder to get in it. And one thing about it is, from the crow's nest, your view of the horizon is much, much greater. And what you're looking for is, believe it or not, for a periscope. So you want to know if there's a sub. You know there are subs out there, but if you don't see them, you're going to get sunk. And when you're in a storm and a ship rolls in the sea, you got to understand, here's the mast, and when it goes over, you're over the water. And you hope this doggone container you're in doesn't come loose. And then the ship comes back midship and goes the other way. Those are some of the things, you know, that it kept you busy.
I'm gonna, one final question. Are there any kind of life lessons, things like that you would like the students here to know?
Any kind of what?
Any kind of life lessons or things that you've learned over your time that you would like to pass on to students here?
Listen to your teachers in college or in school. I don't know why, I was a freshman, and our little school in Ellsworth, why that first year in manual training, you take manual training in a that's working in a shop.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where I learned to read and draw plans, and that's how I turned into be a contractor myself, because I could read plans and I knew plans. I learned it in Ellsworth, Kansas, years and years ago. So like I say, study that in school. Now also wanted to tell you, my next to oldest brother was a pilot. He flew fighter planes. You know, the largest amount of bullet holes in an airplane, he never lost an airplane or thing out of his squad. He landed that airplane, 44 holes shot through that airplane. That's the first thing when you land on a carrier, they jump up and count bullet holes in the airplane. 44 is what the highest he had, and never got hit himself. He's darn lucky. The good Lord looked after him.
Well, we appreciate the three of you coming in. Thank you very much. I'd like to get a picture or two before you go.
Well, thank you for the very, very
I do.
nice luncheon, sir.
I want to thank you kids, because you kids learn what you got taught in your school, because it's sure going to help you out in life.